Good morning, everyone. This is Jeffy Kennedy, author of Epic Fantasy Romance. I'm here with my first cup of coffee. Delicious. Today is Monday, May 27th, Memorial Day here in the United States, uh, but not a holiday for me. I was actually feeling some desire, some longing for this to be a holiday for me. But I lost so many days being in Tucson and then just not being very productive lately that I wanted to get my act together and get some work done today. So I'm actually feeling pretty good about things. Um, Last week, what was it, Thursday and Friday, with Reluctant Wizard, I went back to the beginning and started revising from the beginning, which longtime listeners will know is one of my techniques. I had made it up to, what did we say? Well, I'm at 27,000 words now. Uh, I usually shoot to draft. I write linearly, and I shoot to draft from beginning to end, um, and then go back and revise from the beginning. That's always a thing for me. I always revise from the beginning. I feel like I should caveat this and say that because I am, I hope famously, I would love it if I am famously known as an inveterate, die-hard, committed, dyed in the wool, right for discovery author, pantser, the word I don't like. Uh, what are the others? Gardener, Mister, all of these things. Um, that the assumption by so many people out there, both experienced writers and not, and I understand like teachers of literature and writing, is that if you don't outline ahead of time, then you're not a real writer. I've heard that one, that a professor once said that you'll never be a real writer if you don't learn to outline your book ahead of time, which I just want to say, tell that to Agatha Christie and Susan Cooper, among others. Uh, I did have a point there. Sorry, I got a little excited. Um, my point is that there is an assumption that if you don't outline ahead of time, then you spend a huge amount of time revising, which some people do, which is fine. Martha Wells was telling me that that's what she does, that she spends a lot of time meandering through the story, and she probably overwrites by a couple 100,000 words and then goes back and trims what she knows what she's doing and finds the core of the story. And that's awesome. Because what's my mantra? Just say it with me, people. All of you longtime listeners, figure out what your process is and own it. Martha Wells totally owns her process. I own mine too, even if I complain about it from time to time. Uh, what happens with me is that at various points, each book is different. I will hit a point where I just know I can't keep going forward, that I have to go back and revise from the beginning. In this book, it happened sooner. I wouldn't say this is a unique occurrence, though. A lot of times, once I get past the Act One climax, I shouldn't say a lot of times. I can think of a couple offhand where I got to the Act One climax and then knew I had to go back and revise from the beginning, just to gather up the threads sometimes. This time it felt like a concentration issue that I really needed to, um, because it has been such a chaotic few months. I was realizing that, in another week or two. So I guess it's not really an anniversary yet. But with my stepfather dying on March 10th, that and in a way that was really traumatic for me personally, um, it really it threw me for a loop, and I have not had great concentration for the story. And that is one thing about being the kind of writer that I am, which I usually refer to as intuitive. I just let the story flow, but it requires that I hold that story in my head. It requires me to concentrate very fully on that story, and I haven't been able to do that. So going back to revise from the beginning allows me to pick up those threads. And and as I always find out, and it's partly because I've written so many books at this point, but it's fine. The story is just fine. There's nothing wrong with it. I didn't think there was, but I wasn't sure where I was going with it, which is another downside of this particular process. Many people tell me that they don't believe when I say I don't know how the book is going to end. Uh, some of my friends, like Melinda Snodgrass, says that she cannot start unless she knows the ending. Uh, we all have our own process, right? I have to feel my way to the ending. I have to let the story reveal itself to me. So, and this one, even though it is a continuation in the world, Reluctant Wizard is the beginning of a trilogy that follows Bonds of Magic and Renegades of Magic. This one's writing differently. It's, well, they all write differently. But this one, I don't know if I'm going to include POVs from the previous people, as I had been doing. Um, it's just got a different feel. I had kind of wanted it to be a new entry point to the series, so I'm sure that's influencing it in some ways. So, anyway, um, that's where we're at. And I haven't made it hugely far, but I have been making progress. And right now I'm taking all progress as good progress, which I always say too. So I'm 25% of my way through the revision, and we'll just see how it goes. I anticipate, well, as I have been, getting line edits from my editor at Tor on Never the Roses. Maybe those will come tomorrow. Maybe she worked on them over the weekend. That would be good. In which case, I will drop everything and work on those. So when people ask about balancing a traditionally published career with an indie career, that is pretty much one of the things that you have to do. Is you have to drop what you're working on your indie stuff and prioritize the traditionally published stuff, because you're working on other people's schedules, and they're the schedules of people who are very, very busy. And not that we aren't too, but that's just one of the things that you sign up for. And it is occasionally irritating. I've heard horror stories from people who get you know, proofs back with a request for a 24-hour turnaround. That doesn't happen very often, which is why they make for good stories. And yeah. So anyway, it may require me to go back. I may end up, I don't like doing it this way because it takes more time if I do this, revise from the beginning now, and then go. I might have to revisit again once I get my head out of the other story, although line edits aren't so bad. Line edits are usually, for those of you who don't know, they're just, should we tweak this sentence? I haven't gotten line edits from Allie before, so she could be someone. Some editors have fairly substantial changes in the line edits. I have a feeling Allie won't do that because she's a real pro. And it's not that it's unprofessional to do that. I should say it a different way. But there is an expectation for time and attention and focus. If the previous stage, she already gave me my edit letter, which is for the content or developmental edits, and that requires a lot more story thinking. Line edits should be a going through track changes and making tweaks. Every once in a while, there will be something to reconcile where it'll be like, well, you say this on page 117, but on page 59, you said the reverse. And sometimes you have to fix those things, which is important to fix those things. Uh, so we'll see. Once I get those line edits, then I'll go back to Reluctant Wizard and write it through to the end. And I may, depending on what I find out in writing the rest of the story, have to go back to the beginning yet again. But at least the beginning will be revised, and Yeah, I had to do it. It had to be done. My exciting news today is that today is amazingly, and I feel like they have a thing on here where you can like play the drums. Oh, we could play with these things. Oh, here, dramatic piano. Let's do that. No, that's not what we want. And this is knocking it out of the park. There could be more. No, I would have to do extras. Never mind. Um, Drum roll. Today is the 10th anniversary of the release of the Mark of the Tala. And if I was smart, I would have gotten that out. But let me just grab it. For those of you on video, the Mark of the Tala. Yeah, look at that. Um, so that was the first book in my 12 Kingdoms books. It was my first uh, hard copy thread publishing deal. Uh, it was the first traditional publishing deal for which I received in advance. I had been publishing with Carina Press before that, but Carina Press was digital first / only. They did put some of my books into print later, but those were kind of special circumstances. And also, Carina did not do advances. So that was my first agent sold this trilogy for me. So that was a milestone. I got an advance, which was not a huge advance, but it was still a really nice advance, and it was an advance. These books came out in trade paperback for those of you not on video, and yeah, it was remarkable because okay, if we're going to do show and tell, sorry for those of you not available for show. Uh, this was the book for which I got this shiny trophy, which does not show up really well on video because it's etched glass. But this book received the RT Book Reviews Editor's Pick for June 2014. And it's dusty. My cleaning ladies don't dust the tchotchkes, which is just as well because I don't want them breaking my shiny trophies. So this was not the first shiny trophy I received, but it was a landmark one. And it was really great because, and when I teach, I have a workshop on writing cross genre and succeeding anyway. This book also got the as the editor's pick. It got received the seal of excellence, which was for a book that pushes genre boundaries. And before this, I had been laboring for years and years and years, trying to get a trad pub deal, trying to get my books out there, and knowing that they were cross genre because I was writing this mashup of epic fantasy and romance. It was not paranormal romance. I had trouble with the science fiction fantasy publishers because they thought that there was too much romance, too much sex and kissing in them, um, of the consensual variety. I had trouble selling to the romance publishers because there was too much thick world building and fantasy stuff. And everybody said they didn't know how to market these books. And and that was why at one point an agent had told me that my problem was that my books fell in the cracks between genres, which is why my very good friends began calling me a crack hoe, um, which was meant with great love and needed at the time. So it's funny looking back. um, yeah, so I went from crack hoe to book of the month, and that was it was the Krakow triumph. It was amazing. And it's so funny now, 10 freaking years later, that romantasy is this huge thing. And I was talking with some folks on one of my author discords. It's just a small little discord of a few people, about the romantasy term. And uh, Lizette Marshall, who writes Romantasy, said a good line that she thought romantasy, as a definition, was descriptive but not prescriptive, which I thought was a great way to put it, because we were talking about people saying things like, oh, this or that series should be included in Romantasy. And we were trying to decide why they felt that way. And I tend to refer to Romantasy as a very big umbrella. And Lizette said, and a few other people were talking about, is this like a secondary world fantasy? Is that a requirement of Romantasy? But there are a lot of the older books, the older series, like these that came out before the portmanteau Romantasy was coined, that do fit that definition. And there are ones that are paranormal romance back in the day that do go to secondary worlds, mythological and fantasy worlds. And that's always been a conundrum when you have something like a portal fantasy, which is why some editors and agents will say that they don't like portal fantasies, because it mixes up the genres too much and they feel like they can't market it and whatever. Excuse me. Portal fantasy is like, my Covenant of Thorns books is a portal fantasy. Technically, Outlander's a portal fantasy. It's when part of the story takes place in our familiar world and then a character or characters travel to a secondary world. Outlander is fantasy, historical, Scotland. Does that count as a secondary world? You know me, if you've been listening for any length of time, that I don't think that as an alternate history counts as a fantasy or a secondary world, especially Diana Gabaldon's books. They are, it's historically accurate, except for Claire being there. Anyway. So, it's interesting that what I call, and you may have noticed that, like I was trying to say Romantasy for a while, and I've just gone back to saying epic fantasy romance, because I do feel like what I write is that, and it's underneath the Romantasy umbrella. And for me, it's a big umbrella. I don't see any reason to exclude books just because they were called paranormal romance in the day. Kensington called this book fantasy. What they were originally published as and what they're understood to be now can be two entirely different things. That's fine. Genre definitions, like language, are fluid, and they are very, very often determined by the readers. At least, let me take that back. They are still determined by the booksellers and marketers, right? But Amazon has changed things so much by having so many more granular sub-definitions of genre that we're no longer so driven by the bookstore shelves and what where the booksellers want to put them on one of a dozen categories in the store. But the term Romantasy did come up from the readers, and it comes from the people who are reading the thing and say they want more of the thing. And that's what's really important with genre, right? Is to be able to say, here's this thing. Do you want more of this thing? And I've talked to a number of people, like, not only was this such a milestone for me, but this was a milestone for a lot of other readers who have become writers, that they read these books and thought, aha, this is the kind of thing I want too. And that's amazing. It's just amazing to me when I meet people who read these books, who read the 12 Kingdoms books and loved that blend that is now such a big thing. So, 10 years. Who'd have thunk it? I would say that I started the trend. Wouldn't that be cool? Except I did not. There were other people writing at the same time. Grace Draven, her books came out around the same time as mine. C.L. Wilson was already writing this kind of thing. arguably, a lot of those books that were originally called paranormal romance, if they, I would even say some urban fantasy, that they would be falling under the Romantasy umbrella now. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing at all. So, happy 10th anniversary to the Mark of the Tala. And yeah, I'm going to get to work. Hope you all have a great week. If it's a holiday for you, I hope you enjoy your holiday. And I will talk to you all on Friday. You all take care. Bye-bye.